I swear, if that smug bastard had said one more word, I would have rearranged his smile permanently. We were at a dinner I didn't even want. My wife, Ashley, told me it was important, the kind of talk we couldn't have at home. Serious tone, no details. I thought maybe, just maybe, she was finally ready to patch things up. What I walked into was less reconciliation and more ambush with candlelight. He was already there when I arrived. Chase Donovan, her so-called colleague. Tight black shirt, perfect hair, the kind of guy who looks like he practices smirking in the mirror before work. Ashley sat beside him, hand suspiciously close to his thigh, laughing too loud at his recycled dad jokes. Logan, she said sweetly, motioning me to the seat across from them. This is Chase. You've heard me mention him. Oh, I'd heard. Too often. Mentor, inspiration, guy who just gets me. I should have known. I sat, smiling politely, fists already clenched under the table. Chase leaned in, eyes locked on mine like we were in some twisted Western standoff. I'll make this simple, he said smoothly. You've got two options, Logan. Leave quietly, or face me like a man. Ashley didn't even flinch. She smiled. My ears rang. The room blurred. Those words echoed like a challenge carved into stone. He thought I'd crawl away, let him play house with my wife while I slinked off into irrelevance. I smiled back, calm as a man holding a loaded deck. You want your teeth whole or in pieces? The table went flying. Plates shattered. Wine painted Ashley's white dress crimson. Chase's smug face met wood and glass. The restaurant erupted, screams, chaos, security charging in. Ashley's voice cut through the madness, shrill and cold. Logan, stop. You're embarrassing me. Embarrassing her. After she lured me here like a prop in her little theater of humiliation. They dragged me out with bloodied knuckles and silence where my rage should have been. And that silence? It was worse than fury. Because in that quiet, one sick truth settled in. She didn't bring me there to talk. She brought me to watch me lose. And that night didn't break me. It woke me up. Because I knew one thing. This wasn't over. When I got home that night, the house felt wrong. Not the furniture. Not the pictures. Just the air. You ever walk into a room and feel like someone else has already claimed it? That's what it was. Her perfume lingered in the hallway. But not just hers. There was another scent mixed in, something musky, arrogant. The bed was perfectly made. Tight corners, sheets tucked like a hotel room. Ashley never made the bed like that. I sat down, palms still raw from glass and wood, mind replaying every frame of that dinner. His smug voice. Her little smile. The look of satisfaction when I was dragged out like a criminal. Then my phone buzzed. A message from her. You didn't have to do that. You embarrassed yourself. Not, are you okay? Not even denial. Just blame. That's when the switch flipped. I started looking. Not because I was suspicious anymore. I already knew. But because I needed tangible truth. Something I could hold in my hand while she gaslit herself hoarse. First stop, the closet. Buried in the shoe rack was a pair of red heels I'd never seen. Expensive, sharp enough to cut glass. Ashley hadn't worn heels in months around me. Next, her vanity. Tablet sitting there, unlocked. She thought I trusted her too much to snoop. She was wrong. The first photo I opened nearly caved my chest in. Her, barely dressed, taking mirror selfies in a hotel room I didn't recognize. Date stamped last weekend. She'd told me she was at her friend Lacey's baby shower in Sacramento. Swipe. Another photo. Chase. Shirtless. Brushing his teeth in the background. My breathing turned shallow. My eyes burned. There were videos. Voice notes. Him calling her my little secret. Her giggling like a teenager. And then the dagger. He still thinks we're just going through a rough patch. Poor baby. Poor baby. That's what she called me. Suddenly everything made sense. The late work meetings. The girls' nights. The way she dressed up only when she wasn't with me. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was a placeholder. The next morning, she waltzed into the kitchen like nothing had happened. Coffee in hand, hair tied up, scrolling her phone. I slid the tablet across the table, open on the messages. Her fingers froze. She stared at the screen, then at me. Finally, she said, "Why were you snooping through my stuff?" That's what she said. Not "I'm sorry." Not even denial. Just deflection. I leaned forward, voice low and steady. You lied to me. You humiliated me. You treated me like garbage while you played house with your new toy. And you still think I'm the problem? Her lips curled. You're being dramatic, Logan. And right then, I smiled. Because I realized something. She still thought she was winning. But she had no idea the game had already changed. After she dismissed me with that little smirk, I didn't argue, didn't shout, didn't even raise an eyebrow. She thought my silence was surrender. She didn't realize it was strategy. That night, after she fell asleep in our bed that smelled like his cologne, I went to the study. Bottom drawer, beneath a stack of old tax files. That's where I'd been keeping the folder. Manila, plain, nothing special to look at. Inside, proof. See, I'd started collecting weeks ago. Not because I knew, because I suspected. And suspicion, in my world, isn't paranoia, it's insurance. Hotel receipts. Credit card charges at restaurants I'd never heard of. A couple of screenshots I'd quietly airdropped from her phone when she left it on the counter. Even a voice memo, Chase's voice, low and smug. Next time, don't wear the ring. It ruins the mood. I sat there, sorting, labeling, building a timeline. Chase probably thought of me as some lumbering fool. Ashley thought of me as predictable. But predictable men don't last 15 years in business without learning how to document everything. At 2:14 a.m., I had a binder, plastic sleeves, chronological order, airtight. A prosecutor's dream, a liar's nightmare. The next morning, she stumbled into the kitchen, robe tied too loosely, yawning like a queen who hadn't slept well on her throne. "Morning," she said, not even glancing at me. "Morning," I replied, sliding her coffee across the counter. She scrolled her phone while sipping, no clue that 10 feet away, in a locked drawer, sat the blueprint of her downfall. Later that day, I called an old friend of mine, Daniel, lawyer, the kind of guy who could dismantle a contract with one hand while buttering toast with the other. "Divorce?" he asked. "Not yet," I said. "I want her to think she's safe first. I want her comfortable. Then I want her cornered." Daniel chuckled. "So you're playing long game." "Always," I said. That evening, Ashley floated the idea of us going on a marriage retreat. Some spa up in Napa, conveniently scheduled the same weekend Chase had a conference. I nodded, smiled. "Sounds great." She thought she was keeping me in the dark. She had no idea. I was the one holding the flashlight. And while she booked her little getaway, I was already planning something else. Something she'd never see coming. That there's a difference between knowing and proving. Knowing is a gut punch. Proving is loading the gun. I had both. Now it was time to aim. Ashley thought she was a master manipulator. Truth is, she wasn't even original. All the tricks, fake retreats, sudden gym memberships, secret passwords, those are chapter 1 in the cheater's playbook. What she didn't realize was that while she was writing her little soap opera, I was already editing the script. The week before her so-called marriage retreat, I started planting seeds. First, I paid a visit to my buddy Carlos. Runs a small IT shop downtown. Good man, bit of a wizard with phone data. I handed him a flash drive with copies of Ashley's texts, emails, photos, everything I'd siphoned from her tablet. "Jesus," he muttered, scrolling. "She didn't even try to cover her tracks." "That's her gift," I said. "She underestimates everyone." Carlos whistled low. "You want me to extract the metadata? Timestamps, GPS coordinates." "Exactly. Make it clean. I want a trail even a jury could follow." By Friday, I had a dossier thicker than a college textbook. Hotel check-ins, call logs, text exchanges, down to the minute. If she claimed she was at Pilates, the GPS said she was in room 307 of the Marriott with her colleague. If she said late-night office work, the security cameras caught her car leaving the lot 2 hours early. It was airtight, but paper alone wasn't enough. I needed theater. Something that would strip away her smug little smile and show her, in real time, that the ground she walked on was gone. So I started with Chase. I knew where he worked, knew his schedule, knew his habits, thanks to a few quiet afternoons of sitting in my truck down the block. He was a creature of routine. Gym at 6, protein shake by 7, office by 9. Predictable, like clockwork. One morning, I followed him to his office. Watched him pull into his reserved spot with that obnoxious smirk plastered on his face, blasting some rap song loud enough to rattle the glass. I waited until he went inside, then slipped a small envelope under his windshield wiper. Inside, just one photo. Him and Ashley, tangled up at the hotel bar, time-stamped, printed in glossy detail. No words, no threats, just proof. I didn't stick around to see his reaction. Didn't need to. A man like Chase thrives on secrecy, on the illusion of being clever. Handing him evidence of his own stupidity was like slipping a crack in his armor. By lunch, I was sure paranoia would eat him alive. Ashley, meanwhile, was rehearsing her big performance. She spent Thursday shopping, new dresses, new lingerie, even a new perfume. She came home humming, bags dangling from her arms, like she was prepping for prom. She kissed me on the cheek out of habit. I smiled back, like a man oblivious. Friday night, she packed her suitcase. I helped her, folded her clothes, zipped the bag, even carried it to the trunk of her car. She kissed me again, longer this time, performative, like she was trying to prove something even to herself. "Wish me luck," she said. "Always," I replied. As her taillights disappeared down the street, I didn't feel anger. I felt calm, like a chess player 3 moves away from checkmate. I drove straight to Daniel's office. The manila binder sat between us on the conference table. "She thinks she's at a retreat," I told him. Daniel smirked. "Let me guess. She's with Chase. Room 307 Marriott," I said, tapping the time-stamped photo. "And she'll be there until Sunday night." He leafed through the binder like a kid unwrapping presents. "This isn't just enough for divorce," he said finally. "This is enough to nuke her credibility, torch her financial claims, and maybe even cost her custody if it comes to that." I leaned back. Good. Because I'm not playing for survival. I'm playing for victory. Saturday morning, I made my second move. I emailed a package of the photos, receipts, and call logs to the board of directors at her brokerage firm. No commentary, just the facts. Ashley had always bragged about being the face of integrity. Turns out, the face had lipstick stains from her colleague's shirt. By noon, she was calling me. I didn't answer. By 3, she was texting, sweet at first, then annoyed, then frantic. I let the messages pile up, each one a little more desperate. She didn't know yet that her boss already had the files. She didn't know her colleague was unraveling after finding the envelope. She just knew something felt off. That evening, I visited Noah, my nephew, who owed me a favor. He worked at the Marriott as a night clerk. One quick handshake, one casual chat, and I had the room key to 307. I didn't barge in, didn't cause a scene. I simply walked in while they were out at dinner, placed a second manila folder on the nightstand, identical to the one at my lawyer's office. Inside, all the same evidence. Proof of their affair, proof of the lies, even a copy of the envelope I'd left on Chase's car. On the front page, in bold letters, I'd written one sentence. "Every move you've made, I've already seen." I locked the door behind me and left. By Sunday afternoon, Ashley came home early. Suitcase half unpacked, hair messy, eyes red. She tried to storm in like nothing happened, but her act was cracked. She dropped her bag by the door. Arms crossed. "We need to talk," she said. "Finally," I replied. She launched into excuses. How I was paranoid, how nothing was as it seemed, how I was controlling, insecure, dramatic. The usual script. I didn't interrupt. I let her dig the hole deeper. "Finally," she snapped. "What do you want from me?" I stood, calm as stone, and said, "Nothing. Because you've already given me everything I need." I watched her blink, watched the confusion flash across her face, followed by something new, fear. That was my first move, and she still had no idea how many more I had left. Ashley always underestimated me. To her, I was a steady paycheck, a safe placeholder, the man who'd patch drywall and mow the lawn while she found herself. She thought she was playing chess with a pawn. Truth is, I'd been moving like a queen for weeks, and now? She was boxed in. She came home Sunday afternoon with the kind of look I'd only seen twice before. Once when she backed into a neighbor's car, once when Chase's wife showed up at her office unannounced. A mixture of panic, defiance, and the faint realization that the jig was up. She slammed the door shut behind her, dropped her suitcase in the hallway, and planted her fists on her hips. "We need to talk." I leaned back in my chair at the kitchen table, calm as a man waiting for his coffee to cool. "By all means." Her speech came rehearsed. First, denial. "It's not what you think, Logan." Then, minimization. "You're making this bigger than it is." Finally, blame. "You're so cold. You pushed me into this." I didn't interrupt. Not once. I just let her run the whole performance until she was red-faced, pacing, her voice cracking in frustration. When she finally paused to breathe, I spoke 3 words. "Check the nightstand." Her brows furrowed. She stormed off toward the bedroom. 30 seconds later, I heard the sound of a folder hitting the floor. Then silence. Then her voice, tight and thin. You went through my things. I almost laughed. Your things? Ashley, the hotels were never ours. The credit cards are joint. The tablet? Family plan. You weren't hiding your secrets in a vault. You were leaving them on the coffee table. She stormed back into the kitchen, eyes wet now, but not from regret, from anger. You had no right. No right. I repeated, standing slowly. Ashley, I had every right. You gave up your rights when you made vows to me, and then handed them to Chase in a hotel room. For a moment, she looked like she might break. Then the steel came back into her eyes. Fine, she hissed. If you think you've won, you haven't. I'll take half. The house, the savings, the retirement. I'll bleed you dry, Logan. I smiled. Oh, how I smiled. Because this was the moment I'd been waiting for. About that, I said, walking calmly to the office. I returned with another folder, this one thick, tabbed, a lawyer's dream. I set it gently on the table, slid it toward her like a winning poker hand. She opened it, scanned the pages, and her face drained of color. Bank statements, transfers, trust reallocations. Every dime of my assets moved into protected accounts weeks ago. My lawyer Daniel had crafted it like art. Airtight, legal, untouchable. You don't own half anymore, I said evenly. You own nothing. Except your mistakes. Her lip trembled. You can't do this. I already did. For the first time in years, Ashley was speechless. She sank into a chair, staring at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. She flipped through page after page, her hands shaking. I could almost hear the gears in her head grinding, trying to find a way out. But the truth was clear. There wasn't one. And then, as if on cue, her phone buzzed. She snatched it up like a lifeline. But the moment she read the message, her face twisted. She turned the screen away from me, but I didn't need to see it. I already knew who it was from. Chase. I asked casually. Her eyes darted up, wide. How did you? Because I left him a little gift too, I said. You should have seen his face when he found that envelope on his car. Poor guy looked like someone stole his protein powder. Her hand shook as she clutched the phone. I could tell by the way her thumb hovered that Chase wasn't offering comfort. He was panicking, probably already distancing himself, probably realizing he had more to lose than she did. And that's when it hit her. She was cornered not just by me, but by her lover too. You don't understand, she whispered, voice cracking now, real fear bleeding through. He loves me. He said He said what? I cut in, my tone sharp but calm. That he'd leave his wife? That you'd run away together? Ashley, men like him don't run away. They run around. And the moment things get messy, they run back. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She knew I was right. She just didn't want to admit it. I leaned forward, hands flat on the table. Listen carefully. You don't get to burn my life down and walk away smiling. You don't get the house. You don't get the savings. And you sure as hell don't get the satisfaction of playing the victim. She blinked fast, like maybe tears would save her. But I wasn't buying it. Not this time. And then I delivered the final blow. Tomorrow morning, the board at your brokerage will receive an email. Screenshots, receipts, photos, everything. You'll be out before lunch. Her face snapped up. You wouldn't. I already did, I said. Sent it Saturday. Her jaw dropped. The silence in the room was deafening. For years, she thought I was the boring one, the predictable one, the safe, steady husband who'd tolerate anything as long as the bills were paid and dinner was on the table. What she didn't realize is that boring men survive storms because we prepare. And when the storm passes, we rebuild stronger. Ashley sat there, broken, staring at the ruins of her perfect little scheme. And me? I poured myself a glass of water, sat down across from her, and said, the game's over. And you lost. But here's the part she didn't know. The game wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I was just getting started. By Monday morning, the fallout had already begun. Ashley left the house before sunrise, her car tires screeching against the driveway like she could outrun the truth. I didn't stop her, didn't even wave. I just stood at the window, sipping my coffee, watching her speed toward the fire she had built herself. I knew what was waiting for her at the office. My email had landed in the broker board's inbox at 7:01 a.m. sharp. Screenshots, receipts, photos, the works. No commentary, no bitterness. Just facts, laid out like exhibits in a courtroom. Integrity matters in her line of work, and Ashley had just sold hers for the price of a protein shake with Chase. Around 9:30, my phone buzzed. Daniel, my lawyer. His voice carried that barely contained amusement lawyers get when they know their client is winning. Just heard from one of my contacts at her firm, he said. They've suspended her pending review. Code of conduct breach. She'll be lucky to get out with a recommendation letter, let alone a paycheck. I smiled into my coffee. Perfect. That was strike one. Strike two came from Chase. By noon, I had an email in my inbox from an anonymous account, but I recognized the style. Blunt. A little too casual. Definitely Chase. You don't know what you've done, man. You've ruined her career. You've ruined mine. If this gets out any further, I'll... The threat stopped short. He didn't finish the sentence. Probably realized halfway through that men like me don't flinch at half-baked ultimatums. I printed the email, slid it into my growing folder, and chuckled. Chase thought I was reckless. He didn't know I'd been methodical. Ashley came home late that night, shoulders slumped, hair a mess, makeup smudged. She dropped her purse on the counter and stared at me like a cat cornered in its own house. They fired me, she said flatly. No, I corrected, folding my arms. They suspended you. They'll fire you after the review. There's a difference. Her nostrils flared. You destroyed me. I shook my head slowly. No, Ashley. You destroyed yourself. I just made sure there was a mirror around when it happened. She opened her mouth to fire back, but nothing came out. For once, she was out of words. She stomped upstairs without another sound. That was the moment I knew. The cracks were spreading. The next morning, I got another call. This one from Noah, my nephew at the Marriott. His voice carried a hint of excitement, like he was delivering gossip he knew would land hard. Uncle Logan, he whispered, you'll never believe what went down last night. Room 307, your wife and her guy? Big scene. He accused her of setting him up. Said the envelope on his car was her doing. He actually yelled, "You're trying to ruin me," in the lobby. I leaned back in my chair, smiling. And what did she say? Cried. Begged. Swore it wasn't her. Security had to step in. They both got tossed out. I think Noah hung up and laughed. Chase was crumbling. Exactly as planned. When liars feel cornered, they turn on each other faster than wolves with no meat left. That was strike two. Now it was time for strike three. Wednesday evening, I set the final piece in motion. Ashley came downstairs in her robe, hair damp from a shower, face pale. She looked tired, beaten. Not physically, emotionally. She slumped into a chair at the dining table and said quietly, "Logan, we need to figure this out. For both of us." I raised an eyebrow. Figure what out? She fiddled with the edge of her sleeve. The house. The money. Everything. If you're really going to divorce me, at least let's. I don't know, do it peacefully. Her tone almost fooled me. Almost. But I knew better. That wasn't surrender, it was strategy. She was trying to buy time, to salvage something, to claw her way out of the hole. So I gave her a rope. All right, I said, leaning forward. We'll meet tomorrow with Daniel. We'll lay everything out, calmly, like adults. But Ashley, she looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. Don't lie. Not once. Because if you do, I promise you, you'll regret it. She nodded quickly, too quickly, like a student promising the teacher she studied for the test. I knew she'd lie anyway. That was her nature. But I wanted her comfortable when the hammer dropped. The next morning, we met in Daniel's office. She came in dressed sharp, trying to look composed, even though her eyes gave her away. Chase wasn't with her. Good. The man was smart enough to stay far from a lawyer's office. Daniel started the meeting by laying out the basics. Division of property, accounts, debts. Ashley shifted in her chair, crossed her legs, tried to sound authoritative. I deserve half. That's how the law works. Daniel smirked. That would be true if the accounts hadn't been moved into protected trusts weeks ago. Your name is no longer attached to any of them. Ashley's mouth dropped. She turned to me. You can't just. I cut her off. I can. I did. And it's legal. Daniel slid another folder across the table. Inside were copies of her text messages, photos, even the timeline Carlos had built with GPS coordinates. This, Daniel said, tapping the folder, proves repeated infidelity, misconduct, and fraud. If Logan pursues this aggressively, not only do you walk away with nothing, but you may also find yourself liable for damages. Judges don't like liars. Ashley's face went white. She swallowed hard, eyes darting between us like a trapped bird. Daniel leaned back, his voice calm but firm. Here's what we're offering. You leave with your car, your clothes, and any personal belongings you can carry. Logan keeps the house, the accounts, and custody of any shared assets. In return, we don't pursue further damages. Her jaw dropped. That's robbery. No, I said, standing. That's mercy. She glared at me, eyes burning with hatred. You think you've won, Logan? You think this makes you some kind of hero? I leaned down, close enough that only she could hear me. No, Ashley. I don't need to be the hero. I just needed to stop being your fool. She sat frozen, lips trembling, but no words came. For the first time in years, Ashley Donovan, queen of manipulation, mistress of excuses, was speechless. And as I walked out of that office, folder under my arm, I knew something she didn't. My revenge wasn't finished. Not yet. Because sometimes the cruelest payback isn't what you take away. It's what you let them keep. Emptiness. 2 days after that meeting, I saw Chase for the first time since the restaurant ambush. Not in person, on the evening news. Turns out, his wife had gotten my little package too. I didn't send it directly. No, that would have been too obvious. Instead, I slipped the evidence to a mutual acquaintance, someone who couldn't resist delivering juicy scandal. By the time it reached her, Chase's dirty laundry was strung across the whole neighborhood like Christmas lights. On the news, the anchor read off the charges: professional misconduct, breach of contract, inappropriate workplace behavior. Chase's firm suspended him indefinitely. His wife filed for separation the next day. The golden boy was tarnished, and I hadn't lifted more than a finger. Ashley called me that night, voice dripping with desperation. You don't understand, Logan. He was going to leave her for me. He said we had a future. I chuckled. Your future just made the 6 o'clock news. Click. She hung up. That was fine. I didn't need her words. Her silence was victory enough. For the next few weeks, Ashley stayed in the house. Not because she wanted to, but because she had nowhere else to go. Chase had shut her out. Her firm blacklisted her. Even her so-called friends stopped answering her texts once the screenshots leaked. So she drifted around the house like a ghost, staring at her phone, chain smoking on the porch, blaming everyone but herself. Meanwhile, I carried on. Woke up early, went to work, mowed the lawn, paid the bills. My life was boring again, and boring never felt so good. Every night, I'd walk past her in the hallway. She'd glare at me, sometimes mutter insults under her breath. Placeholder. Coward. Loser. But here's the thing. Every time she said it, her voice cracked just a little more. The woman who once thought she held all the cards was slowly realizing she didn't even own the deck. One night, she cornered me in the kitchen. Her eyes were red, her voice trembling. You can't just erase me, Logan. 20 years together, and you think you can just wipe it all away? I poured myself a glass of water, met her eyes, and said, I'm not erasing you, Ashley. I'm letting you erase yourself. She didn't answer. She just crumpled into a chair, silent for the first time in weeks. The divorce papers came through faster than she expected. Daniel had greased the wheels, every I dotted, every T crossed. Ashley had no leverage left. No income, no reputation, no allies. When the day came to sign, she sat across from me at the lawyer's table, pale and hollow. She tried one last plea. You really want to do this? Throw away everything we built. I leaned forward. We didn't build anything, Ashley. I did. You just redecorated while I was busy holding it up. The pen shook in her hand as she signed. With each stroke of ink, another piece of her crumbled away. When it was over, she looked smaller, defeated. Daniel shook my hand, congratulated me. Ashley walked out without a word. But I wasn't done. Not yet. See, revenge is sweetest when it's quiet. Everyone expected me to throw her out, cut her off, erase her completely. But I had something else in mind. Something she'd never see coming. 2 weeks later, Ashley packed her things. Suitcases, boxes, garbage bags full of clothes she hadn't worn in years. She moved into a one-bedroom apartment on the other side of town, paid for with the last of her dwindling savings. On moving day, I helped her carry the boxes to her car. Calm, polite, even smiled at the neighbors who watched from across the street. To them, it probably looked like two exes parting on decent terms. When the last box was loaded, she stood there, arms crossed, glaring at me. You think you've won, she spat. But you're alone now. You'll die alone, Logan. I smiled. Maybe, but I'll die free. You'll live trapped, in a cage you built yourself." She sneered, climbed into the car, and drove off. Here's the part nobody saw coming. The twist she'll never escape. See, long before all this, I'd set up a scholarship fund in our name. Ashley loved bragging about it at parties. How generous we were, how selfless. What she didn't know is that I'd quietly renamed it. Not the Logan and Ashley Foundation anymore. Just the Logan Grant. And the first recipient? A bright young intern at her old firm. The same firm that threw her out. So every year, for the rest of her life, Ashley will get a glossy brochure in the mail. A smiling face on the cover, thanking me for the opportunity she always pretended to provide. Every year, she'll be reminded of the reputation she wanted, the respect she craved, and the fact that it all lives on without her. No shouting, no violence, no dramatic finale, just silence, success, and the one thing she can never take back, her own regret. That's the thing about revenge. People expect fire and fury, but the cruelest kind? It's calm. It's patient. It's letting them choke on the ashes of their own choices while you breathe easy. And me? I'm breathing easier than I ever have.